Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I am so excited to be filming this video. I'm going to be trying the brand new Tarte Shape Tape Color Correctors. I have never been tagged on Instagram as many times as I was tagged when these were announced. I love to try color correctors. If you're new, it's something I'm very passionate about. I have dark circles, I have redness in my skin, and I love to try color correctors and do dedicated reviews on all of them. And I've tried most out on the market. I haven't tried everything, but I've tried a lot. And I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable when it comes to color correcting. So if you're new, my name is Blair. I do all kinds of beauty and makeup content here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I hope you'll subscribe, and let's just go ahead and get started with this. If you are looking for a really quick review of these correctors, I'm sorry, this video is probably not going to be for you. When I review color correctors, I like to tell you as much information as possible. I like to compare them to other color correctors that I love or that I've tried, and hopefully try to help you find the best one for you. So just a quick disclaimer, this probably will not be a short video, but if that sounds like something you're interested in, please keep watching and let's go ahead and get started. I picked up 3 colors. I got the green, the pink, and the peach. I was not planning to get the pink. The reason I did is because I wasn't sure, based on what I saw online, if the peach would be too orangey. I have talked about this a lot, but I like a corrector that, yes, is an orangier base that works really well with blue under eye circles, which is what I have. But I do find typically if you're around a light, fair skin tone, you need a little bit of pink in there. It can't be super, super orange. That's kind of hard to work with if you have a lighter skin tone. So I picked up the pink just in case I wanted to mix them or use a little bit of both colors. But before we do the under eyes, I'm going to use the green corrector. So this is the Shape Tape Corrector. I have to say I'm super impressed with Tarte's shade range. They have, I believe, 9 different shades, which is amazing. They had a white, a blue, a black, a red, an orange, yellow, green, pink, and peach. They might even have more than 9. It might have been 10. Very impressed with that. If you're going to release color correctors, you need to have as many shades as possible, in my opinion, because the shade is what really makes the biggest difference most of the time, in my opinion. These retail for $30, so they are a little bit on the pricey side. I will kind of go through a few of my other favorites. You get 0.2 fluid ounces in here for $30. So kind of pricey, not a ton of product, but if you're wondering, that is the price and how much you get. So let's just dive right into the green. So green corrector is not something I use all the time, to be honest. I've tried quite a few green correctors. I recently tried the new one from e.l.f. I will link the video I did on these. I, in short, was not a fan. I found these not to be full coverage, which is what they claim to be. They were hard to blend and just didn't do a whole lot for me personally. So I was not a huge fan of those. I usually prefer a green primer instead of an actual color corrector like this, but for the sake of the video, I wanted to try it. So here is what it looks like. So you have a doe foot applicator, which is very nice. The doe foot is a little bit smaller than the Shape Tape Concealer, if you're familiar with that one. That one has a pretty large, fat doe foot applicator. This one's a bit smaller. I'm gonna do, I guess, one side of my face at a time and we will just see. So I have some redness mainly here on my cheeks. I have a little bit more on this side, but I don't really have redness anywhere else. So I'm only gonna apply it where I need it. Let me grab a brush. I'm just gonna use this Sephora 56 brush. It's a foundation brush, but it'll work. So I am just gonna, okay, so right away I can tell you this is extremely pigmented, which is not a bad thing at all. This is blending pretty nicely. Very, very pigmented though. I definitely didn't need both of those swipes. I could have just gotten away with just one swipe. So FYI, if you're applying this, keep that in mind. Sometimes I find with green correctors, and you will probably be able to see this here, they do tend to leave a green cast if you use too much. This one is very pigmented, so I think I could get away with this for sure if I just use a little bit less product. But FYI, it does really tone down the redness. It's not going to get rid of it entirely, but it definitely does tone it down, which is the point. I'm gonna look. I have a close little handheld mirror. Okay, so it blended really nicely. It does have a little bit of a green cast. So obviously I will put something over the top of it, but just something to be aware of. But the finish, very nice. It applied beautifully over my skin. Doesn't look heavy. The formula feels very hydrating. It's not super, super thick. Not as thick as Shape Tape, but it is a bit of a thicker formula. Just not as thick as that. All right, let's go ahead and do the other side. Okay, so a lot of product is on this little doe foot. So I'm gonna start with just that on this side, and we can always go in and add more. Yeah, do you see that? I barely touched it, and I'm getting a ton. Okay, yeah, so I could use even less, you guys. So learn from my mistakes. That is not very much product. This is probably the most green of a corrector that I've ever used, and I've tried a bunch of them, but the blend on this is really nice. Very, very nice. So you can still see my redness peeking through. My redness is just from little broken capillaries that I have. I've always had it. I don't ever remember a time not having it. So it definitely does tone it down, but just remember, if you have a significant amount of redness, it's not going to take it away entirely, but it should kind of tone it down. So yeah, you do still have a little bit of a green cast, FYI, so just be careful in the amount of product that you're applying. I don't know if you could get away with wearing this on its own, which is kind of why I usually like to go with a green primer instead. They're just not as concentrated usually. But overall, if you're gonna put foundation over the top, this is very impressive. So, all right, let's move on to the under eyes, which is what I'm the most excited to try. So like I said, I have peach and I have pink. I'm gonna start with the peach, and I'll just kind of evaluate if I think I wanna try some of the pink or not. Step one, if you're gonna use a color corrector, especially under your eyes. This really applies to your whole face, but especially under the eyes. If you are using a color corrector, make sure you have prepped your under eyes with something, an eye cream, your moisturizer that you use, whatever it is, even some type of beauty oil. Make sure you have prepped the area and let it sit for a minute. You want the area to be hydrated, but you don't want it to be super slippery so the corrector will move all around. You want it to be set down, but hydrated. Just a very supple surface, if that makes sense. So I already did that. I used an eye cream. I used the Bobbi Brown eye base today, and I applied that probably 10 minutes ago. That's another tip I would give if you have trouble with things like correctors looking heavy under your eyes or looking dry, enhancing texture, fine lines, that kind of thing. Make sure you are applying a little bit of whatever you use under your eyes 5 to 10 minutes before you're applying your product. So for me, I did my skincare, but that was an hour or two ago. I always make sure to go in and reapply something a little bit before I do the makeup, because your skincare should absorb. So if you go in with skincare that you've applied 2 hours ago, most likely the area is going to be dry again. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'll stop talking now and we will try this out. So just like I said with the green, a lot of product comes off on this. So you may want to kind of scrape some off, just FYI. Actually, let me zoom you in. Okay, now you can really see. So let's do Let's do my right eye first. So I'm gonna go right in, and I'm focusing it mainly right here because that's where the majority of my darkness is. I do have a little bit on this outer corner, so I may end up adding a little bit out there, but I want to start with just this, considering how much the green really spread across my face. I don't want to go in with too much. I personally like to use a small brush to blend in a color corrector under the eyes, especially. I feel like a sponge usually will pick up too much product, and then you're just gonna have to keep adding more and more and more. I find you have a little bit more control and you keep your coverage with a brush. So I'm gonna use the BK Beauty A506, which is the perfect size for under your eyes, and I'm just literally gonna tap. So yeah, right away, I can tell you it spread all the way across my eye, so I didn't need to add any additional product out here. So remember, this is definitely very pigmented, spreads really easily, so less is gonna be more. So there it is. On that eye, you can see this eye has nothing. So it's definitely, I would say, an orangier peach, which is why I bought the pink. Because sometimes I do find with color correctors, they will call them peach, but they're really more orange than peach in my opinion. So this one is definitely on the orangey side, but I do think it did a good job of neutralizing the color there. So I want to do a few swatches before we move on to some of my other color correctors that I use and love. So you can kind of get a sense of how this compares. But the formula on this, you guys, is really nice. Really like how hydrating it feels, and pretty thin, but you get a lot of pigment. Okay, so here is the Tarte Shape Tape in shade Peach. Okay, one of my other all-time favorites is this one from Exa. It's the High Fidelity Color Corrector, also in the shade Peach. This works really well, and this is what this Tarte one is reminding me of the most based on everything that I've tried. All right, so I want you to see this because I know that Exa works really well for me. There is a difference between the two, okay? So this is Tarte in Peach. This is Exa in Peach. So you can see that Exa is a little bit more on the pink side. I would say not quite as orange as this one. Similar, but the color is different. That's the trickiest part to me with color correctors, is the colors are very important, and everybody is going to be different. Everybody's going to need a different color because it totally depends on your under eyes or your skin in general. Now I'm going to swatch this one. This is another favorite, the Neutrogena Color Corrector, again in the shade Peach. So these are all the shade Peach, and they're all different. Okay, so this is Tarte, this is Exa, and this is Neutrogena, all in the shade Peach. So for me personally, the more orange in it, that means I can't wear it alone. Like, I could not wear this Tarte corrector on its own, whereas I have some other correctors that I could wear honestly on their own because the color is exactly right for my skin tone. It's kind of pink, kind of orangey. It's a true peachy tone. That's where it gets tricky with color correctors, is the color itself. I do think the Tarte one did a good job of correcting the area. It's just not one that I could wear on its own. Then I have this one. This is another holy grail for me. This is Bobbi Brown in Bisque, which this is probably my absolute favorite if I had to choose one. I have the Bobbi Brown in both formulas. I have the stick and the pot corrector. Both of them are the shade Bisque, but you can see this is Bisque up here from Bobbi Brown. Then you have Neutrogena, then you have Exa, then you have Tarte. So very, very different. Do you see how the Bisque from Bobbi Brown is very close to my skin tone? This is why I can wear this color on its own. When you start getting into these darker, orangier colors and you have a more fair, light skin tone, you can use them, but you are definitely gonna have to use something pretty full coverage to go over the top to cover it up. Does that make sense? So that's why I bought the pink, because I wanted to see how the Tarte one would work with the pink, if that would kind of add a little bit more of that color and kind of tone down the orange a little bit. I hope this is making sense. I just really want to explain my thinking here, but so far it looks nice under my eyes. It has not creased at all. It looks very hydrating. I really like what I'm seeing so far. Let's do the other eye. And on this eye, we're gonna do a little bit of pink and peach. Since I have it, I want to try the pink. Now, something else I want to address about pink color correctors. Okay, sometimes you will see people using pink as a corrector for under their eyes. If you have a fair, light skin tone and you do not have much dark pigment under your eyes, then yes, you can absolutely do that and you will get a very brightened under eye effect. If you are like me and you have a light skin tone and you have darkness, you see this blue, purple color right here? On this eye, I even have a vein that goes all the way up the side of my face. If I put this on my under eye alone, the darkness is just gonna shine right through this and it's gonna look gray because I'm putting something really, really light over something that's dark. This is why you can use a darker shade like this, but you're gonna have to put something over the top. The closer you get the color of the corrector to your skin tone, the better off you're gonna be, because you could wear it alone or you're not gonna have to work so hard to cover it up. I do wanna show you what the pink looks like. Like this is very, very light. So this to me is just to add brightness. I don't know that this is gonna do much correction under your eyes. I would say this is more of a brightener. You see that there? So that is shade pink and it's very slightly pink, like very, very slightly pink. And what I'm thinking I'm actually gonna do is maybe mix the two together a little bit on the back of my hand and just see what I think about the color. So I have a little bit of pink and a little bit of peach right there. So there you go. See how that really tones down the orange, but it's not as light as that. Let's go in and try it. So I'm gonna use the same brush and I'm just gonna get a little bit on the brush, okay? So this is what I wanted to show. So both eyes have been corrected. This one is just much more noticeable in that it's orange on me. It's darker on my skin tone. This one is much less noticeable. This is something I could wear on its own, whereas this is not. That's what I mean by the color is just really important with color correctors. So that's why I'm really happy that Tarte came out with a really good shade range, because that is important. I'm gonna add just a little bit more on this side. The only thing about having to mix them is obviously you can't just like draw it on with the doe foot. You could, but it's probably gonna apply better if you mix them together and then apply them. So there you go. So do you see that? This is peach, this is pink and peach. So to me, ideally, I would go with this. But you could use peach on its own. You're just gonna have a harder time covering this up. So now that we have it under both eyes, I'm loving the way it looks. Like, love the finish. It is not creasing. It looks hydrated, but not dewy or too glowy. So what I wanna do now is apply a little bit of skin tint over this green color corrector and see if we still get a green cast through it, and then we'll do a little bit of concealer under the eyes. So I applied a little bit of a skin tint. At first I was worried. I thought, okay, I think we still have a little bit of a green cast, and I think maybe just slightly. I'll have to really see what I think when I watch this footage back, but I used the Fenty skin tint in shade number 3. If you're wondering, it's one of my favorites. I think the takeaway with the green corrector is less is more. Use significantly less than you think you will need, and you'll probably be fine because it is so pigmented and spreads very easily. So keep that in mind. So let's move on to the under eyes. Obviously, Tarte recommends going in and applying Tarte Shape Tape over the top as your concealer. I really committed to this, and I bought a little mini Shape Tape so we could use it in this video. I used to use Shape Tape years ago when it came out, long before I had a YouTube channel, and I loved it. Back then, it was just so iconic. It still is, as one of the most full coverage under eye concealers ever. Over the years, I've tried so many things. I try things for YouTube all the time, and I've used and loved other things, but I did go ahead and pick up a mini of this, so I figured we could use it. I have this shade Light Beige, and this is the ultra creamy version of Shape Tape. So I might not use this on both eyes. I know I want to use it on the eye I use the peach on its own, because it's going to be a bit harder to cover that eye because it's such a dark peach color. So let's go in with this. And again, I know with Shape Tape, you really don't need a ton. So I'm gonna start with that, and we will see. I'm gonna go in with a brush. That's just how I like to apply concealer. This is the BK Beauty 110, and I'm just gonna start tapping this in. And you can see like that just spread across my whole eye very easily. So same kind of thinking with Shape Tape concealer as the Shape Tape corrector, okay? So there it is. That applied beautifully over that peach. It covered it easily. Like, I don't look orange under this eye anymore. I mean, it looks really good. Let's go ahead and do the other eye. Now, I'm debating if I should use Shape Tape or a different concealer on this side. I'm gonna use a different concealer on this side just so you can see if you're wanting to see something other than Shape Tape. One of my favorites is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I know a lot of people love this one. So I'm gonna use this on this side, and this is in the shade Creme Brûlée. Then I'm gonna again use the 110 from BK Beauty to blend this out. So we have NARS on this side and Tarte Shape Tape on this side. Honestly, they both are looking really good. I want to look up close. I mean, yeah, honestly, you guys, they both look very nice. I think the NARS side, which is the side where we mixed the peach and the pink, I think this side looks a little bit brighter than this side, and I think that's probably because the corrector on the Tarte side was darker underneath, so you're not going to get as much brightness, whereas the two colors mixed together already gave a little bit of brightness and color correction, and then I put a pinkier brightening tone concealer over the top. But they both look really nice, honestly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of my makeup, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up the video with all my final thoughts. All right, you guys, I went ahead and did the rest of my makeup, and I want to kind of give my final thoughts and close out the video. I did not set my under eyes. So I did set my face with a little bit of powder, but I have no powder under my eyes. I just kind of wanted to see how the concealer would look over time without actually setting it with any powder. And you guys, my under eyes look so good today, and I'm so excited about it. I think Tarte did a really great job with these color correctors. I love the shade range. I love the consistency. They are super pigmented, as you saw earlier, and I just think they did a phenomenal job. As far as the colors go, the green, it did a great job at neutralizing some of the redness on my skin. It is very pigmented, like I keep saying, but it really truly is, and it spreads very easily. So I definitely need to use even less than I used today when I use this again. So just keep that in mind. Maybe put some on the back of your hand, dot it on maybe, or even build it up in a brush first and then kind of tap it in the areas where you need it. But less is definitely more. I really like this though. This is, I would say, my favorite green color corrector that I've tried by far. I did want to show a little bit of comparison between these two. So I have the Tarte one here. I have the e.l.f. one that I talked about earlier right here as well. Both of these claim to be a full coverage corrector, meaning in my opinion, they have a lot of pigment, okay? So this, they look the same right there, don't they? Now, this is Tarte, blended out. This is e.l.f. Do you see how e.l.f. blends in very, very easily? This one, even with blending it quite a bit, you still have a lot of that green pigment there. I'm not saying everybody wants that level of pigment. I'm just saying that if you are really wanting to correct something on your face and it's pretty substantial, I would definitely go with something fuller coverage, meaning I would definitely go for this over the e.l.f. I know the e.l.f. is more affordable, but I've tried them both. The Tarte one is much better, in my opinion. In terms of the under eyes, I can use the peach on its own, like you saw. That's what we did on this eye. I did love mixing it with the pink though, because if I do it that way, like I did over here, I could wear these alone. Not that you would need to or want to, but if you did want to, you could if you're around my skin tone. The peach on me on its own is too dark for me to wear alone, but it did go beautifully underneath the Tarte Shape Tape, and I didn't use a lot of Shape Tape and had no trouble covering it up. So honestly, I think these are really great. My first impression is highly recommend these. As you may know, or you've heard me say before, I'm very, very picky with color correctors. They have to perform, they have to actually cover and correct, but I still stand by what I said in that the most important thing to me is the color of what you're using. The one thing I will say about this is with these, I can get away with using peach on its own. I do think I would probably more than likely end up mixing them more often just to get something that's closer to my skin tone. That is where I do think Bobbi Brown shines with color correctors. The shade range is just amazing. Now, Bobbi Brown does not have the blue corrector, the yellow corrector, those other colors. They primarily focus on the peach and the bisque tones for under the eyes. But if your under eyes are really the area of concern, I love Bobbi Brown. I talk about both the stick and the pot corrector all the time. They're fantastic. Also love this one from Exa. The Exa corrector is $27. The Tarte corrector is $30. These are the two most similar, I would say, of all the ones that I've tried, and I have more of them than what I showed you today. These are just the ones I use a lot and I thought would be good to pull out for this video. But these are very, very similar. So if you have this, I don't think you need this. If you are wanting this one is kind of hard to get your hands on. I think the Tarte is really great. Highly recommend, especially if you have severe darkness, discoloration, redness, dark spots, anything with a lot of pigment on your face. I think you'll be really happy with these from Tarte. I think that's everything. I hope this was helpful. I am super happy with these. I will definitely continue to use them and keep you updated on my thoughts. If you're someone that does not have much discoloration on your face, you have just slight redness or maybe just a slight discoloration under the eyes, I don't think this is for you. This is for someone that has pretty significant pigment that they're wanting to correct or cover. If you have a little bit less, I think you can get away with something much lighter, maybe even concealer on its own in or with an undertone that works for your particular skin issue. So I think that is everything. I hope this was helpful for you. Like I said in the beginning, I really wanted to go pretty in depth here and really show you how they work and what I think. But today I have to say my under eyes look fantastic. Fantastic. So my first impression is very good of these correctors if you're in the market for one. I will have the Tarte correctors linked below as well as everything else that I have on my face today. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Share my videos with anyone that you think might enjoy them. And make sure you're following me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. And I will see you next time for another video. Remember, simply be you. Bye.